Hello and welcome to a new video in which we discuss a very specific situation of a PhD student that I work with that was able to submit their thesis, to write and submit their thesis in less than 2 months. And since I feel that this is quite of an achievement and I don't see it very often, I wanted to share with you the entire process, how they achieved that, and what are the things that you should do if you are in that similar situation and you need to wrap up your thesis as fast as possible. So to provide a little bit of context, this is a client, a PhD student I've been coaching for the past almost 3 months, I would say. And they reached out to me because they had a problem with their funding. So basically their supervisor informed them that they have only 3 months left of funding and that they have to wrap up their thesis as fast as possible due to this project closing and funding problems and so on. So of course they were overwhelmed because you are maybe counting on 6 more months or 9 more months, and all of a sudden your supervisor comes to you and says, no, you should, whatever you're doing, you should wrap it up in the next 12 weeks because, well, there's not enough money for you to continue doing the work. So of course it's a very overwhelming situation, and they reached out to me saying that basically this is happened and what are the things that they can do in order to actually succeed in this, that I would say, I don't know how to even define this task, impossible, very daunting and so on. So here's exactly what we did in order to make sure that this person can actually write their thesis and submit in less than 2 months. So here's the thing. Basically, the thesis consisted of 3 separate projects that were kind of connected, but that was a huge bottleneck actually that was stopping this PhD student from proceeding with the writing process itself. Why? Because 2 of the projects were conducted with one idea in mind, and there was this 3rd project that was kind of connected, but you had to make an effort in order to make it look cohesive as one coherent thesis that made sense both scientifically and narratively. So they basically had those 3 projects that were luckily, so the experiments were done, the results were in and so on. And one of them was even already a published paper, so that was kind of the thing that was good news, because at least you have something that's written, you can start from somewhere. However, there were many things to do, many things to define, first of all, like how do we connect those 3 different things? How do we make a narrative out of it? How do we make an introduction so that it guides the reader and it guides the committee, most importantly, throughout the entire process? And then finally, how do we put together the conclusion that sort of wraps up the entire project? So if you are in the situation like this, if you have very few months left to write your thesis, to wrap it up, for whatever reason, maybe you weren't ready to start writing, maybe you were procrastinating, maybe you had this funding situation similar to what my client had, here is the exact steps that we took with that person, and hopefully it will help your process as well. So I like to imagine thesis work, and this is something that I told them from the very beginning, as a very messy drawer. So what would you do if you have a drawer that's very, very messy? Of course, the first thing that you would do, if you have to clean it, you would take everything out to actually become aware of all the things that are inside of it. Of course, that's easier said than done. However, I feel that this is the crucial and I would say fundamental part of building a thesis. You have to be aware of all the results, of all the data that you have, if you are even going to try to make coherent narrative, especially a scientific narrative, out of all of that. And I know that it might sound weird because how would one become unaware of all the data that they have? But trust me, when you're doing a PhD, data, plots, figures, results multiply in ways that it's very hard to keep track. And since everything is happening very fast, you always kind of forget some of the things, especially if you're doing separate projects in different times. Maybe something that you did 2 years ago, something that you're doing now, something that you will do, 6 months from now. So, and you are already preparing some things. So it's very easy to kind of compartmentalize, I would say, all of those things and become unaware of all the things that you already did. And here's a little bit of information for you. If you feel that you do not have enough, that's your first cue and your first sign that you should go into the drawer, into your PhD drawer, wherever you have your results stores, whether they live in the drive, in presentations that you're preparing for your supervisor, I don't know, in your personal computer, wherever it is that they are living, you go there and do a little bit of cleaning process, or not even a cleaning, I would say just realizing what is there, becoming aware of the things that you already did. And trust me, you probably have much more than you think. Circling back to the story, so to our drawer. So the first thing that we did, we took everything out. So this actually took quite a few sessions, 2 or 3 sessions for sure, and it was really extensive work. Basically, we went into every single thing that they ever did in order to sort and figure out what is the story that we want to tell. And when we had this, already just having the entire panorama of everything that you have is already something that brings a sense of calm and brings you a sense of, okay, I might even achieve this. So that's exactly what we did. After figuring out everything that was there, we then guided the scientific narrative. What does that mean? That means that if you have some projects that are kind of disconnected, how do you find a common thread that is tying together all of those things? And this is something that I feel keeps many PhD students stuck, especially when they are writing, whether it's their thesis or their paper, because it's kind of hard to say, okay, what is the story that we are trying to tell? So that's the second thing that we did together. We established a clear scientific story that we just then upgraded with all the data and information. So once we had the scientific story clear, only then we moved to the writing process. How do we do the writing? So there are 2 things that happen while we are writing anything, a thesis, for example. There is this, like the writing per se itself, and then there is the thinking about what to write. And from my experience, most of the people procrastinate and get stuck because they kind of allocate time for writing, but they do not previously establish what is it that they're actually going to write about. So this is the thing that we did together. We got into the teeny tiny details of every chapter, every section, just to illustrate. Chapter 1, it's called this and this and this. Chapter 1 has 6, 7 sections. Section 1 it's entitled this way. Section 1 has 4 subsections. Each subsection is entitled this. In subsection 1, we are writing this thing. In subsection 2, we are writing this thing. So this is something that you have to do if you want your writing to be as productive as possible. And when you have only less than 10 weeks to write your thesis, you want your writing sessions to be productive. So this is kind of the entire process that we went through, and this is the process that I teach all of the PhD students that I coach. How do you even approach your work in a way that you're able to construct a scientific narrative that makes sense? And then you can, of course, write about it. Or at least it's much easier to write about it when you have this clear idea in mind. So having said that, I wanted to tell you that if you're struggling with that, if you think that you have disconnected projects that don't make sense, if you feel that your thesis is just not coming together, if you feel that you do not have the support from your supervisor that can help you do that in a reasonable time, I want to invite you to join the PhD Reset program, which is a program for PhD students that is designed specifically to help you with those things. And here is how it works. So basically it works as an online group coaching in which you get weekly coaching sessions with me within a group of PhD students in which you can bring whatever is currently bothering you with your PhD. Whether that's writing block, or you don't know how to put your thesis together, you don't know how to frame the entire thing, you are unsure, you need support, or you just feel that it's everything kind of a mess and you don't know how it will ever come together as a coherent thesis or paper. So this is exactly the place in which we dissect this procedure that I just explained in the first minutes of this video. So if you're interested in this kind of support, if you feel lost and stuck with your PhD and you want this gentle push towards submission, I will leave a link down below in the description in which you can schedule a completely free intro discovery call with me in which we can talk about exactly that. What's currently going on with your PhD and figure out whether the PhD Reset program is the right next step for you. So I hope that you found this video useful, and as always, see you in the next video. Bye bye.